Everybody's been doing great work. I appreciate you being a part of this journey with us. I don't want to belabor time, so I will introduce to you Shavon Dotson. Do I say your name wrong? I keep calling you Dotson. It's Dotson, right?
Dotson.
Dotson, Shavon Dotson. I have called her the wrong name all this time. So y'all, Shavon, I apologize. She comes to us from the DC area, and she is making magic happen for us around methods and all things youth development, and we appreciate her immensely. Shavon, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Shavon Dotson. I'm going to tell y'all, first of all, I'm so excited to be here. I have been off on medical leave for a few weeks now and have been having to sit in the house and do nothing. I am so excited to be back and have purpose and be training. So this is my first training off of medical leave, and I am like over the moon excited to be here with you all this morning. And I have some really great things planned for us this morning because I am just in an amazing mood, and I'm hoping that you are in an amazing mood as well. So if you can do me a favor, and just type into the chat. I see someone did it already because we're going to use the chat feature this morning. If you can just type into the chat, hi, hello, good morning. You can type random letters. You can type random numbers. Doesn't even matter. I just want to make sure that you can access the chat feature and that I can see you and you can see me. Perfect. I see some things coming in. Awesome. Awesome. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for that. And I want to do a quick check-in. At the bottom right of the screen, there are some reactions, some emojis. Go ahead and choose an emoji. Let me know how you're feeling today. Feel free to, it doesn't even matter. Like, I just want to know, I see some thumbs up. Okay, I see some thumbs up. If you just like, I'm feeling it today, it's okay. All right, I see party hats and I see some laughter. Okay. All righty. Okay, that's helpful because I am really going to cater this training really kind of according to how you're feeling today, right? Because I have been doing this all year long virtually, and I have learned to really go with the flow and the energy that is kind of in our virtual space here. I know we are at the end of the year. I know y'all are like, oh my goodness, another training. Here we go with this stuff, right? I know we are probably like all over it. So I'm going to do my best to make this feel like not just another training. Right? So this is going to be very interactive. I always tell people you get the most out of this when you interact. I do have a presentation. I am going to go through it, but at the same time, please feel free to chime in, jump in with a story, with an anecdote, with a question at any time, because this is very informal and this is meant for us to have more of a conversation as well. So I'm going to present some things to you all, present some information, but I want you to ask as many questions as possible. I will say Antonio started me off this morning with a little vibe music. I was feeling it, Antonio. Thank you, because we really on the same page. Because guess what? I got some music queued up here myself just to kind of get the blood pumping, the blood flowing. So here's one thing I know about virtual trainings, right? Sometimes we kind of get stuck. We all are in these boxes. Literally, we are in boxes. I can see you in a box. And sometimes that can feel a little claustrophobic. And we think that all we can do is use our head and our neck and our shoulders to be expressive. However, I am going to encourage you to use your whole body to be expressive if you feel like it, because we are going to do an icebreaker in a minute that involves some music. So before we get to the icebreaker, I want to do another quick check-in, and I want you're going to type into the chat for me and let me know how you're feeling this morning with a 1, a 3, or a 5. You're going to type of 1 if you're just like, lady, I'm here, but I'm really over it. Kind of don't really want to be here this morning. I got a lot going on. My mind is just not here. That's a 1, and I'm okay with you being a 1. Okay. I want you to type a 3 if you're just like, I'm still waking up, or I'm really multitasking. So I'm here, but I'm doing something else. I'm checked in, but I'm also trying to check in over here as well. That's a 3. You're a 5 if you're like, sis, you got my undivided attention. I'm here with you today. I'm excited to have my coffee, my caffeine, my whatever it is. I'm ready to go. That's a 5. So let me know, are you a 1? Are you a 3? Are you a 5? I'm not offended by any of these numbers. These numbers just help me figure out kind of where you are in this space. And we're going to go from there. All right. I see some 5s. I see some 3s. I am here for it. I'm going to be honest with you all. I am probably like a 4.75 right now. Okay. But by the end of this training, I hope to be at a 5 myself, because that's the energy that I really want to give you, because that is the energy that you deserve from me this morning. All right. All righty. So here we go. We are about to do a little bit of an movement icebreaker. Now, I always tell people, when people log on and they are off camera, that lets me know, like, you got some other stuff going on. You really trying to do some things. I'm not even mad at it. Feel free to stay off camera if you so choose to. Of course, I'm going to stay on camera the whole time because I want you to see me. But we are going to have a good time, and we're going to do a little icebreaker that I have called, I've named it, right? Called Name That Tune / Artist, right? If you don't know the name of the song, but you're like, oh, I know the artist, feel free to type that into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and you can say it at any time. Now, here is the kicker. I'm going to play some songs that also correlate with some dances. So if you know the dance, feel free to move your body and do the dance as well. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've tried to throw in a few TikTok dances. I'm a mom of a teenager, so I see TikTok dances happening all throughout my house all day. My daughter's always like, Mom, we got to learn this TikTok dance. So I'm throwing in a couple of little TikTokers, dances and stuff in there as well. So just hopefully you enjoy it. Okay, if you're ready, I'm ready. Go ahead and give me thumbs up with the emoji to let me know if you are ready to rock and roll. Yep. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Okay, so here we go with Name That Tune / Artist. If you like, I know the song, but not really. Here we go.
To the right now. To the left.
All right,
Take
y'all.
it back now, y'all.
Who is this?
One hop this time.
What's this?
One hop
Type
this
it in the
time.
chat.
Right foot, 2 stumps.
Do a dance if you know
foot,
it.
2 stumps. Slide to the left. Slide to the right. Chris.
Hey, all right. I see it coming in.
Crisscross.
Y'all got it. Cha-cha,
real smooth.
Yes. Here we go. This is the cha-cha slide. This actually the cha-cha slide, but it is the remix, right, to the cha-cha slide. That was by Casper, right? What is it? DJ C, Mr. C, that's his name. All right, so that was the cha-cha slide. I wanted to test y'all, kind of, see where y'all at with that. So you got it. Okay, here we go with another one. This, y'all. Come on, y'all. Who is this? Hey! There it is. Y'all got it. Okay. Yes. That was Prince and the Revolution. That was Dove's Cry. All right. Y'all getting it. Okay. So here we go. That was a good throwback one. Here's a new one. Let me see who can get this one.
There goes. So she make it clap, clap, clap. She make it clap, clap, clap. She make it. She make it clap, clap, clap. She make it clap, clap.
All right. So anybody know who that was? She says, I'm too old for that one. Listen, Felicia said, I don't know what the name, but it bumped. Yes. Okay. And I wanted to see where y'all was at. That is actually I wouldn't have known that either if I didn't know all this TikTok stuff. So that was actually by Soulja Boy, called She Make It Clap, Clap, Clap. So they did like some challenge. Yes, Claire was like, I think I've heard it on TikTok. Me too. That's the only way I know a lot of these like new songs is because there are all these TikTok dances. And I thought that was such like a cute little thing. Every time I look up, everybody's like clapping and punching. I'm like, who is that? You know, and I feel like my daughter's always like running around the house doing something. So now y'all know that's Soulja Boy. And I was surprised to be like, Soulja Boy got a new song out? I know Soulja Boy from you know, it was Superman stuff. So anyways, all right. So now y'all don't feel out of the trend. Now you know that was by Soulja Boy. She make it clap, clap, clap. All right, here we go. Here's another one. All right, come on, y'all. This make you just want to move, right? And feel good. All right, who was that? Anybody know? Yes, Antonio, you got it. That is right. That was Earth, Wind, and Fire, September. I don't know if y'all be watching the verses, but on Instagram, but I definitely tuned into like the 3.5, 4-hour verses between Earth, Wind, and Fire and the Isley Brothers. And it was a full concert. It was amazing. It was playing all the hits. And I was like, I didn't realize y'all been around for that long, since the 50s. It's amazing. Okay. So y'all got that one. All right. Here we go. Also another feel good one. Anybody know this one? All right, anybody know who that is? Yes, Beyonce. That's right. That was Beyonce's version of the remake of Frankie Beverly. I am a huge Frankie Beverly fan. So yes, that was Miss Beyonce, the Before I Let Go, right? She remixed it. The original was Frankie Beverly and Maze. Y'all own it. Listen, y'all own it. But I love that one because it's just like you get up, you bounce, make you move, want to move. All right, so y'all getting these. All right, let me see. Okay, here we go. What if this, I gotta let this one, hold on, let me see. Here we go. Uno momento. Let me cue it up. All right, so this one, hopefully y'all vibe with me on this one because it also makes me feel good. So let me just cue it up here. Yeah, this is like homecoming, right? This is like, yeah, this make you want to, you just gotta do it. Hey, then you gotta, all right, y'all got it. Okay, swag surf, y'all. That's just, take me back. Good old homecoming days. I was in college, right? Grad school. Little swag surf for y'all. Okay. That was my last song right there, you guys. I just wanted to play a little music. Antonio started us off with some Michael Jackson, getting us in a feel good. So I love to play that just to kind of get people hyped, get the blood flowing, get people moving. And I also want to tell you that a really good variation of this, if you're doing it with your young people, it's to do it with the TikTok trends because young people love all of these TikTok trends. And so you can cue up the music to all of the TikTok dances. And that's something that you can have them do. You can be like, all right, I want you to do the dance. When you hear the song, do the dance, right? And that's just something really fun to get them engaged. I love, and I don't do this in all of my trainings, but I love doing it in some of my trainings, just kind of get the blood flowing to get people moving and grooving, get people laughing, get people smiling. So like I said, I have dub that one myself, name that tune or artist. Because if you like me, you like, I don't know all the names of the songs, but I might know who that artist is. So I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you liked my little icebreaker to kind of get the blood flowing this morning. All right. So this morning, we are going to be talking about asking, listening, and encouraging. And I'm going to share my screen. I have multiple screens up here. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, there it is. Hopefully you can see that. So ask, listen, and encourage. That is the name of our workshop this morning. That's what we're going to be talking about. What does it mean to ask? You know, what type of questions are we going to be asking? We'll go over that. What does listening really look like? What should it look like? And then we're going to be talking about encouragement. And most importantly, when we get to the encourage part, we're going to talk about praise versus encouragement. Here's our agenda for today. We did our welcome. We're going to go into thinking about why we do positive interactions. Then we're going to go into the ask, right? How do we ask effective questions? Then we're going to talk about how to do some listening, but do it actively. Then we're going to move into encourage, where we encourage success. We're going to talk a little bit about how this looks in your program. Then we'll do a reflection and close it out. Here are our objectives for this morning. Participants will understand the concept of positive, purposeful interaction with youth. Participants will learn the characteristics of effective questions. Participants will understand the concept of active listening. Participants will learn how the characteristics of effective positive responses to youth and their work. All righty. Just housekeeping, right? I'm going to share some materials with you all, and then I'll email them at the end to Felicia, and she can email some of these out to you all. And it's really just kind of like one thing, and it's talking about our questions. So I'll email that out at the end. Feel free at any time, take care of yourself. If you need to get up, walk away, do something, eat, drink, do those things, please do your self-care, take care of yourself throughout this training. This says, please silence your cell phones, but everybody's muted. I can't hear you anyways. At any time you want to add something, you can feel free to talk it and unmute yourself, or you can type it into the chat. All right, so how does this workshop align with the program quality assessment tool, right? So it is right there in the supportive environment domain, encouragement. That is where this particular workshop really aligns with the PQA, because we're really talking about encouragement and how that can look, and how to be able to really increase our scores in that arena as well. So we're going to start out by, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to think about this. Who supported you, right? In your adolescence, in your youth? I'm going to drop a link into the chat, and you are going to go to this link and just answer this question for me. We talk about who supported you. Here we go. And it's a Slido link. Go ahead if you can and follow that link for me, and just simply answer the question. Let me know, in your adolescence, in your youth, what adult supported you? You don't have to tell me what that support looked like necessarily, but you can just let me know who was really there to support you, and whatever that level of support means in your mind. And so I want you to just think back to when you were in your youth, your young days, and let me know who supported you. I see some answers coming in. I'll give you a second to be able to throw some answers there. And while you all are typing, anytime I ask people this question, I always like to share just a little anecdote with me, and I'll go first and answer. And this really was more so when I was in college. The one person that really stood out to me when I was in college was I was in a pre-college program, after school program affiliated with a college. And when I went to the college, there was the lady who was over the program. Her name was Jacqueline DeWalt. I would never forget her a day in my life. And she really supported me. And I mean, she supported me in a way that I didn't even know I needed support. And I was 18 at the time in college, and I just was struggling. I had a lot going on in my life. My freshman year of college, I tragically lost my brother to gun violence. Went home a weekend, and my brother was killed on our front porch. And we were a few months into school, and I was struggling. I mean, I was really, really struggling. And then a few months after that, I got pregnant. And that whole year, I was just like, I don't know what to do. And I went to this, school, and I was on scholarship, and I just felt like my life was completely over. And this woman, Jacqueline DeWalt, encouraged me so much by always presenting resources to me, opportunities to me, and just really helping me stay focused and letting me know that I can really do this, that I don't have to give up. I don't have to go back and, just accept anything. And she really just shared some of her story with me. And that meant the world to me. And this lady helped me graduate from college. And I was the first person in my family to ever graduate from college, you guys. And I did it with a baby. And she supported me the entire time. And it was, just a breath of fresh air. And she passed away a few years ago, and it really broke my heart. But I will say, before she passed away, I always would tell her how much her level of support meant to me and what that meant for me in my life at that time. So I always like to share that little anecdote, because it's just like, man, these people in our lives who we feel really support us is significant. All right. So I see your answers here. I'll share out really quickly. I see some people said family, right? Their family supported them. And when they were in college, close friends supported them. Some people are saying, yeah, my friends. Someone else said my pastor. Someone said my parents and the staff at the YMCA. Wonderful. Someone else said my parents and my band director. And then another person said parents, and someone said mom. Amazing. So it's interesting to kind of, when we think about who supported us, when we think about how that support came through, right? It really takes us back to think about those people who really stood out, and, those people who really maybe listened to us, maybe encouraged us, maybe provided resources to us, maybe, I don't know, gave you a hug when you needed a hug, right? Because we all have different definitions of what support could look like. And it's so wonderful for you all to be able to share with us exactly who those people were in your life. And because you can recall that level of support, it lets us know how significant and how much of an impact that supporting and encouraging can really have in people's lives. Because as we can see, it's a lifetime impact. If you're able to say, you know what, if you ask me that question, I know exactly who supported me, that means that they made a huge impact on your life. And the truth is, in the work that you do, you are making an impact in the lives of our youth every single day. Sometimes it don't seem like it. Sometimes we can't see it, but you are making a huge impact. And who knows what that impact is going to mean to them right later on down the line. So we're going to talk about how to make sure that, impacting our youth. And the truth is, I tell people, we're impacting them, whether it be good or bad. Because sometimes if I were to ask you, like, who just was not very supportive of you, I'm pretty sure y'all would have been like, oh, let me start typing. Because I tell you, I got a list of some folks myself I can recall really quickly that I know maybe had a negative impact on my life as well. So when we think about the work that we do, we're impacting our youth, whether it be in a positive way or a negative way. Today, we're really going to focus on positive, purposeful interaction. Here it is right here. So how do we make sure our interactions with our youth are positive, they're purposeful? And if you have A workbook, Weicker workbook looks like this: ask, listen, encourage. This information, the page numbers are going to be up there just in case you have one, or you can get access to one. The information is in there. So why do we ask, listen, encourage? Like, why do we do this method, ALE method? So number one, it stimulates deep thinking and it helps with problem solving. It also encourages genuine youth adult partnerships, right? And for me, the word that stands out there is genuine. When you're really making sure that you're not forcing it, right? You're not faking it. It really encourages just that genuine youth adult partnership, whatever that might look like, whatever that support is that youth might need. It really allows us to just kind of be that support, because support looks very different for each youth. It is something that we have to customize for each youth. Another reason we do the ALE method, it will empower the youth, build relationships, help adults understand youth. That is absolutely correct. And then it really will improve our conversation with the youth when we are asking the right questions, and when we are actually listening to what it is that they're saying and encouraging them from that way. So we want to utilize this method to really make sure that our interactions are really always purposeful. They are intentional. So we are going to start by talking about asking, right? So when we're talking about asking, we're going to start talking about the different types of questions we can ask. So we have convergent questions and we have divergent questions. So convergent questions are closed-ended and they're based on factual information. They converge on often like a yes or no, a right or wrong answer. So it's either you got it or you didn't. It's either yes or it's no. They usually elicit very minimal response. And the person who's asking the question with the convergent question, they already have the answer in their mind. It's just like, I'm just waiting to see if you're going to give me the right answer or the wrong answer. So we usually see a lot of convergent questions on tests, right? So there's like, hey, here's a test. There is a right answer. There is a wrong answer. Pick one of these answers. So we usually see a lot of convergent questions in that way. But in my experience of assessing a lot of after school programs, I tend to see some people are asking convergent questions and then staff get a little upset when, the participant, the youth, is not really giving them a big response. Well, it's just like, well, you're asking a lot of convergent questions. So that's a minimal response, right? You're going to get minimal responses. So when you ask a convergent question, you got one question, you generally got one answer. Now, divergent questions. Divergent questions are open-ended. They don't have one single answer. The answers could be limitless, could be endless. There are a range of possibilities. Divergent questions really help stimulate conversation because you can go deeper, right? It allows for that person to really kind of answer in their own way. And who knows where the conversation might go. And you as the questioner, you have no clue what the person is going to say because there are so many different possibilities in answers. So with a divergent question, you might be asking one question, but there are so many different answers that you could possibly give. So let's think about it. A convergent question, an example of that would be me asking you, what is today? Right? Me saying, what is today? That is a convergent question. There are not many answers for this. Just one answer. Today is Wednesday. Okay. Or today is May 5th. That's the answer. If someone were to say, Shavon, today is a day of, this, I'd be like, nope, that's not the answer that I was looking for. Nope. Today, if I actually was today is Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, May 5th. So that is a convergent question. Now, a divergent question would be, how are you feeling today? Right? I don't know the answer to that question. There are many possible answers you could give me to me asking you, how are you feeling today? And that's a check-in question I always like to ask people. Even when I get on trainings, I like to do a check-in and say, hey, let me know, how are you feeling today? How are you vibing? Right? So making sure that we're opening the door. And you'd be surprised how much students will divulge to you when you just simply check in with them and say, hey, how are you feeling today? Instead of assuming, right? Instead of assuming, I know you had a good day today. Well, I don't know. I have no clue what your day was like. So a quick check-in of how are you doing today? How has your day been today? That is a divergent question that can open up a lot of answers. And I actually saw a post on Facebook. It was a teacher, and she was saying how one of her students stayed after in her, virtual class the other day and really just shared with her and said, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I appreciate the safe space that you've created for us here in this virtual space. Because she said, I've had a lot going on lately. Right. And of course, the person posting this didn't go into detail, but she said this was a middle schooler who came to her and said, this pandemic has been difficult and I have had to deal with so many things, but you've created such a safe emotional space and you always check in and you're always giving me an opportunity to vent, to get it off my chest. And, this teacher was just like, I was just really blown away because sometimes we don't realize the impact that we're making by simply even just asking the question and offering the space of, how are you doing today? Is there anything that you want to share with me today? Right? Anything, all of those divergent questions that can really elicit, any type of response to create that safe space. Those can be really impactful, especially during this moment when we are in this virtual world, or we're going through this pandemic. Even if when we go back to person, we're still coming out of this pandemic. And I don't know about you, but this pandemic has not been easy for me. So, just remembering the impact of just asking those divergent type of questions. So we're talking about asking questions. We want to ask effective questions. Make sure that they're divergent. Make sure that they are relevant. And you can also feel free to make some of your questions challenging. And this is really when we're talking about doing programming and, giving activities out and assignments and things like that. Feel free to ask some questions that challenge them to think more critically, to think deeper, right? Challenge them to see if it can go a little bit harder. When we talk about really scaffolding our activities, you can scaffold an activity and kind of know how you need to scaffold it by asking these divergent questions or by asking challenging questions. That makes sure that your interaction with your youth it's intentional. You also want to balance your questions with some comments and some dialogue, right? So we don't want to ask too many questions because, just keep powering them off, because then that's going to feel like an interrogation. Then it can seem overwhelming. So you want to make sure that if you're asking these divergent questions, you want to balance it with some comments, with some dialogue, right? So throw that in there. Give them some, okay, well, thank you for sharing that with me. That's interesting. I never really thought about it like that. Thank you for giving me that perspective. So just balance that with some type of dialogue so that it's not like, I'm going to ask you 50 questions in 2 minutes right now, because that can definitely seem overwhelming. And it can be like, wait, brain overload. I don't even know where to start. And then the other thing when we're talking about asking questions, make sure that everyone in the group has an opportunity to give input. And I always like to tell people input comes in many different formats. Some youth like to give input verbally. Some youth might like to give input in a written format. Some youth like to give input in a non-verbal format with their body language, right? That is their input. I sometimes get like that too, where if I don't feel like saying nothing, but I really kind of want to participate, I'm going to communicate with my body. Sometimes it's my facial expressions, might be a head nod, might be like a thumbs up, might be, I might shrug my shoulders or something like that. And I just remind people, don't disregard that input. That's still input. And sometimes you just have to meet people where they are. And so if you have a youth that's just like, I'm in a non-verbal space today, it's just like, okay, I get it. That's fine. Communicate with your body language, but still it's giving them an opportunity to give input, because when we're talking about asking questions and then the youth answering questions, I like to remind people of, different personality types. Some people are very outgoing. They're very outspoken. They're, extroverts, but then you also have your introverts in the group as well. That's just like, I'm here, I'm present, but I really don't like being, around a lot of people. I really don't like the attention being on me. I really don't like speaking in public. That doesn't mean that they're not listening and they're not engaged. You just have to give them a safe space to be able to be themselves and to answer however they feel comfortable answering. Do me a favor and type into the chat box as you feel comfortable. Are you an introvert or an extrovert, or are you an ambivert? Are you both? Are you an introvert, extrovert? Are you an ambivert? All right, I see some answers coming in. Felicia says, I am an introvert. Claire says, definitely an introvert. You all, I'm very much an introvert. Meg says, lean more towards introvert. Tish says, no, I am an extrovert. Paige says, 100% introvert. And Antonio says, I'm somewhere in between. Awesome. So I am an introvert. So I always tend to sympathize a little bit more with the introverts in the group. And it seems like we have a lot of introverts here. So to all of my introverts, you know how it is when someone's asking all of these questions and you're just like, I'm here, I'm present, but I'm really not going to kind of answer out loud. I'm with you. But then the extroverts are just like, yes, 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 yes. I want to answer. I want to talk. And you sitting over there like, man, I wish they would be, don't call on me today. So I always typically really tend to empathize a little bit more with the introverts because I try to make sure that there's a safe space for them to feel like they can participate as well without the judgment, right? Without the judgment, because everyone is not, outgoing. Everyone may not feel like they want to be, give their input in such an, a very obvious type of way. So that's what I like to just make that point when I talk about making sure everyone has input. I just like to remind people that input can come in so many different ways. And it's best for us to go in it in a non-judgmental type of way and just giving space for, people to give input however they feel comfortable, giving the input. So asking effective questions, right? So when we talk about that, what makes a question really relevant? Number one, you want to make sure it is relating to the interest of the youth. If you don't know what interests the youth, what can you do? Ask effective questions. You can find out and you can make sure you understand what is interesting to them. Some people like to do surveys. Some people like to do, written surveys. Some people like to do informal discussion, but definitely make sure that you have some type of idea of what is interesting to your youth so that you can make sure you're creating programming that is relevant to them. But also when you're asking questions, getting to know them or wanting to really connect with them, you're making sure that those questions are relevant to whatever they're interested in. Also relate your question to the context of the situation, right? So making sure that you kind of stay relevant to what's going on and not take it outside of what's going on at the time. And then ask questions that help move the conversation forward. You really want to make sure that you're keeping the conversation going forward because sometimes, I don't know about you, but I've been in situations where if you ask a youth one question, you ask a child one question, they will go all around in a circle and bring you all the way back. And then for me, I'm like, I don't even forgot where we was going with this. So I try to keep in my head all the time, like make sure I'm listening, but I ask questions that can continue to move our conversation forward. Okay, so I am going to put up on the screen, I'm going to show you an interaction between Miss Johnson and Michael. So I'm going to stop share here and I'm going to pull up a different interaction. Here it is here. If I can, oh, here it is. Look, I don't put it all the way down here on my screen. All right, hopefully you can see that. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up in the reactions if you can see this Word document that I have on the screen. Perfect. Okay, I see some thumbs up. Okay, awesome. So let me try to make this a little bit bigger for you. Okay, so this is a little skit, right? Little interaction between Miss Johnson, the after-school teacher, and then Michael, the student. So I'm going to go ahead and read through this for you, and then we're going to discuss it. So this is Michael coming into the after-school program after school, and he runs into good old Miss Johnson. Miss Johnson says, "What did you do during school today?" And Michael replies, Sam and I collected signatures at lunch to get the principal to let us eat during class, Ms. Johnson. But what did you actually do during school, Michael? Well, almost everyone signed it, including 3 teachers, Ms. Johnson. What did you do in school? I mean, like, did you have any tests or anything? Michael, I don't know, Ms. Johnson. You don't know? Well, who knows? Right? Who should I ask? Michael, I don't know, Ms. Johnson. Michael, what do you like about our after school program? Michael answers, I like hanging out with people and I like the field trips. Ms. Johnson, well, you should take that excitement that you have towards the program and apply it in school because you could really improve your grades. Michael, okay. Ms. Johnson, good. Now we're getting somewhere. What are you going to do now? Michael, I don't know. Ms. Johnson, you're going to work on your homework, right? Michael, I guess so. Ms. Johnson, get it out and get to work. Michael, I have to go to the bathroom. Ms. Johnson, you better not take as long as you did yesterday. You know that your homework is important, okay? Don't take 20 minutes socializing on the way to the bathroom. Don't even take that long. Michael, okay. All right, so I'm gonna leave this here on the screen. Thank you for allowing me to show you my thespian skills, right? So this is just a little interaction here, but let's kind of discuss and say, what went wrong here? Like, what do you see? Feel free to unmute yourself. You can talk it or you can type it. What are your thoughts about the interaction between Miss Johnson and Michael?
She wasn't actively listening to his responses.
No. And how do you know that, Meg?
Because she stayed on task with the question she wanted to answer. And when he was excited about collecting signatures, she just brushed over that and went back to, but you didn't answer my first question. What did you do in school?
Absolutely. She was so focused on getting the answer to her question that she missed out on an opportunity to really connect with Michael and with something he was very excited about. How do we know Michael was excited about what he was doing? What lets us know that Michael was excited to share this information?
Well, I think one thing that we can see is that even after she said, what did you actually do during school? He kept talking about it and kept on bringing up, like, we even got teachers to sign.
Absolutely, right? He kept going back to it at first. She was just like, well, what did you do? He's like, well, man, Sam and I did this thing. No. But what did you do? No. Like, we did this. We got teachers to sign in, and right? Like, she was just focused on, like, I just want you to answer the question that I asked you. But he was focused on, man, this amazing thing happened today, and I really want to share with you. Claire writes in the chat, she shut down his excitement about an interesting, yes, and successful project. Absolutely, right? Because success is different, though, for every person. We all have different definitions of what success is. Did Ms. Johnson think that was successful? Do you think Ms. Johnson would have categorized what Michael did as successful? Makes us no. I don't think so either. Yeah, probably not, because she disregarded it. And so what I want you to do is I want you to just take a minute and I want you to think back, because I'm not gonna lie, I've had to check myself over the years, many a day. And because I've been Ms. Johnson before, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be very honest with you. I have absolutely been a Ms. Johnson before, right? When you come into the program, I'm so focused on homework help, right? Because in one of my programs that I had, homework help was the most important time because it was a thing parents stayed on us about. Parents would be like, I don't care what else y'all do, y'all better make sure my child have their homework done. So for us as staff, we started to feel so much pressure with focusing on the academics, even though our program was nowhere related to an academic program. It was all enrichment, but we felt so much pressure coming from parents with homework. That's really what we started to focus on. And so I was a Miss Johnson before, really being like, no, tell me what you have. What do you have for homework? Where's your homework? What are your grades like? We have to increase those grades, because in my head, I was doing this programming for the parents. Wrong person to be programming for, right? Yes, I like to try to appease parents sometimes, but I had to realize that this program was not for parents. Parents were not sitting in the seats. And because I was a Miss Johnson, I had missed out on really connecting with the students with things that were really interesting to them. What I also noticed here about this interaction, Miss Johnson didn't even do a real like check-in, how are you doing today type of thing. There was no SEL, no social emotional, check-in right here. It was straight boom. What did you do during school? Nope. But what did you like? Where your homework at? Type of thing. And so she's missed some opportunities here to really connect with him in a very authentic type of way. And so when we scroll down a little bit, because Miss Johnson shut him down, how do we see Michael's energy and behavior change? Yep. Paige says he shut down. We know he shut down because he went from, ooh, this, that, to his answer started to be really short. He started to hit you with the, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Sure. I guess so. Right. And because he started to shut down, now it's like I can physically see this playing out, right? In real life, because I've like I said, I've been a Miss Johnson, and I've also seen some other Miss Johnson. I've also been a Michael before in programming, right? I've been a Michael before where I want to share something, and the person I'm trying to share it with is so dead set on what they want, their own, agenda. They're missing out on what I'm trying to share. And so at the end, we can see, it's like I can see Michael's shoulders just kind of start to droop in my head. That's what he's doing. His shoulders are literally drooping. It's like his body language is showing me that he's disconnected. He's disassociated. And then he hits you with the inevitable, I got to go to the bathroom. Now, Michael probably didn't have to go to the bathroom. I don't know. Maybe Michael did have to go to the bathroom. I don't know. But if you're like me and you've been doing this for a while, the students like to use that I got to go to the bathroom to disconnect, right? To leave the space. And, this could be his way of saying, I want to leave the space because I don't feel welcome. I want to leave the space because I'm no longer comfortable. Now, let me go somewhere else. Let me retreat physically, right? Let me physically retreat. I've already retreated inside my body. Let me physically retreat because I really don't feel welcome in this space. And even then, Ms. Johnson goes on with her own agenda. You better not take as long, what I'm saying? It's kind of like she's just belittling him, right? You're going on with all of your things of, you better not do this, and you better get back in here, and don't even take that long, because you better do your homework type of situation. So she did not ask effective questions here. I'm going to stop share there. She did not ask any type of effective questions there. And we can start to see what happens when we're not asking those effective questions. All right. So let's talk about a couple roadblocks to communication. First of all, we saw a couple of roadblocks to communication with Ms. Johnson. But some other roadblocks to communication is when you're ordering students to do things. And so in full transparency, I am very guilty of a whole bunch of these. I'm just going to raise my hand and say, I'm so guilty of these, specifically with my own child. I am so guilty of these. And I really try to, check myself and really take a step back and say, hey, Shavon, are you creating a roadblock for someone to communicate with you? So here are some roadblocks to communication. When you're ordering someone to do something, right? You better do this. You bet, like Ms. Johnson was just like, well, you better not take that long. You better get back in here, get it out, right? Get your homework, get it done. Ordering, right? Or, when you're ordering, like, you better stop that whining and get back to work. I don't want to hear that, right? Like ordering. That's a roadblock to communication. Someone will shut down. Warning, right? Threatening. I've done that as well. You do that one more time, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have to leave the room. You're going to get kicked out of this space. I'm going to call your mama, right? The whole, you better listen or else type of thing, or there's a consequence. That's a roadblock to communication. I am so guilty of preaching. Oh, the ought tos and the should haves. I've been so guilty of that. this is what you ought to be doing, what you ought to been, my child has heard me say this so many times. But even another thing is offering solutions, right? So when you are solving the problem for the person, that's also a roadblock to communication, because you're just jumping in, you're taking away their ability to really think through it, whatever, that might mean for them to arrive at a solution, when you're just like, okay, well, here's what you should do. Here's the answer. That's a roadblock to communication, because now you're setting up in their mind that you're always going to be the person there to give the solutions. Some other roadblocks to communication: lecturing, judging, criticizing, blaming, name calling, right? Stereotyping, labeling, diagnosing, analyzing, interpreting, reassuring, sympathizing, consoling, questioning, the interrogating, distracting, sarcasm, diverting. And then always like to leave this one for last: praising, always agreeing, and always trying to give positive evaluations. That's also actually a roadblock to communication. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like when we get into encouragement, right? Because on the PQA, there is a section for encouragement, right? We get a 1, a 3, or a 5, and we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between, like, how do you get a 5 and how do you get a 3 and what's a 1? Because sometimes, and I've been assessing programs for some years now, and people are always kind of surprised when we talk about their scores in this particular, thing when it comes to encouragement, because they're just like, well, I was given so much praise. I was, telling them great job. And I'm always like, yay, go you. And so I have to tell them, well, that's actually not considered a 5, right? Praising, always, doing this whole giving some type of, positive praise and evaluation, that is actually not conducive. We want to encourage, but we don't want them to always try to seek validation. So always hitting them with the, oh, you did such a good job. That's us kind of putting out that validation, and then students can start to seek that from you. It's like they'll always do something and be like, look, did I do a good job? Look at me. Do you like it? Right? And so we don't want students to seek validation from us. We really want them to seek the validation from within themselves. We want to empower them to know that they're doing a great job by encouraging them, asking the right questions, listening to them, and helping encourage success in that way. Any questions when it comes to this? Sometimes people don't like when I talk about the praise, and we're going to get into that a little bit more, the praise versus encouragement. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to jump in. I'd like to hear from you though, and let me know who can share maybe one of these you feel like you might have been guilty with. Tish says this is great info. I'm glad that you find it helpful. Thank you. Anyone want to share if you've been guilty of any of these?
I can share. I've been guilty of lecturing. So I service girls ages 6 to 18, and in my teen group, I just get into lecturing them, and I know when they zone out on me and just look at me like, okay, here she goes again. So definitely learning a better approach to still lecturing, but in a better way.
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing that. First of all, thank you for sharing, because I've had to really just kind of catch myself as well. And like you said, you can see when they've checked out, right? And man, I'll tell you, I have a 17-year-old, and I'll tell you, from ages maybe like 11 until even now, right? That's really when I feel like I've been in that lecturing and preaching phase with my child, and I can literally look at her and tell exactly when she's checked out. And y'all, it irks my soul. Then it upsets me, because then it's just like, well, no, you're not listening to me. But so I've had to realize, because I've created a roadblock to communication, because all I'm doing is like lecturing or preaching, right? And for me, it's really like what you should have been doing, what you ought to have been doing. I'm really guilty of that. And so I've had to start watching for the changes in the body language, because when I can see the change in the body language, for me, that's an indicator that you've created a roadblock to communication. This person has now shut down. You need to, you know what I'm saying? Like, you need to back off. You need to backtrack. because I started to watch for those, like when the eyes go dead. And like, it's for me, my daughter, it looks like she's literally looking directly through me. I'm like, oh, and you've checked out. And so I'm learning, and I'll still say I'm still learning, even with, you know, some of the other youth I interact with, just to kind of watch for those different changes in body language to really be an indicator for me of like, I need to maybe pull back, because now I have created a roadblock for them to communicate. And Tish, kind of like you said, right? Like when you're working with that age group, you can tell when they shut down, they like, yeah, they're not about to engage with you. Right? Like we know when they shut down, just like how we saw with Miss Johnson and Michael, then he's looking for an exit. He was looking for a physical exit. He looked for an emotional exit. Go right ahead with your question.
I was just going to say, I'm definitely a person who could lean toward lecturing, especially if I'm really passionate about the topic. But also the offering solutions, I've had to make myself aware that it's okay to sit in silence, especially with introverted students like myself, because it takes longer for me to kind of take it in and process it and form my words, because I want to make sure I say the right thing. And if I ask the question and then go 3, 2, 1, well, maybe it could be this, then that's not enough time for my students to really think about how they want to answer.
Yes, 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 and yes again. That is such a valid point. Thank you so much for sharing that, Meg. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in when we talk about listening, active listening. But you are so right when we talk about processing times. I actually had a conversation with a colleague of mine the other day, and I had to remind her of processing times. Everyone has a different processing time. And if you're someone who is always like, boom, 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 look, you know, as soon as I ask you a question, I expect to answer right there, because you have a shorter processing time. If you interact with someone who has a longer processing time, it becomes a challenge. And then you're right, we start to offer solutions, or we start to jump in and continue to talk when it's just like that person is still processing the first thing that you said. Now you didn't ask 5 different questions. They've not even processed the first question, and they might be frustrated. Or now it's just like they might feel overwhelmed. So Claire says, I am so guilty of the offering solutions as well. She says it also stops students from helping each other with solutions. Great point. Then you all are right. We miss the opportunities for them to even help each other, for them to interact, because maybe another student had a different perspective, or maybe they wanted to offer some input as well. And when we just continuously jump in, we're stopping those things from happening. Paige says, it might not be on this list, but there have been times I shut down. Ooh, Paige, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that if you're willing to share.
Sure. I was tutoring a kid actually last week, and he was just all over the place. And I could not get him to focus on doing anything. And I got to the point where I was just done, and I was like, okay, we're not doing this anymore. And it just kind of made the rest of the time together a little more probably stressful than it needed to be for both of us, because I was irritated because we couldn't get the work done, and he was irritated because I was irritated. And it was just a vicious cycle.
Wow. Thank you so much for that input, and, you know, and bringing that to our attention, because I think that's a valid point. Listen, especially in this virtual space, I don't know about you all, but I feel like in the virtual space, my patience level is a little bit shorter than it has been when I've been in the physical space. I'm not really sure what it is, but I just feel like my patience is a little bit shorter in this virtual space for me than usually it has been in the physical space. But also just, you know, I have to always remind myself we still are in the middle of a pandemic. So I know my patience is definitely short. But Paige, I'd love to hear, now that you're saying, hey, I realize this, hindsight, what do you think you would have done differently in that space now that you probably had some time, you know, thought about it? What would you have done differently before, you know, you've gotten to the point of like, now I'm a little frustrated?
I think that I would have just given him the time to maybe process his day more, because they were doing testing in school, and he went from straight to school to meeting with me. And I think he probably just needed a little more time to decompress. And usually, we go right into the tutoring and he's fine, but I wasn't taking into account the day that he would have had at school.
Wow.
Be more mindful of what's going on in his day.
Thank you, Paige, for your transparency, and just for, that perspective and that thought. Thank you so much for that. And sometimes, right, like that might be what it takes. I'm glad that you said, hey, now that I'm thinking about it, I probably could have offered him more time to just digest the day.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I've been a Ms. Johnson before, and I'm leading with my own agenda. And where it's just like, well, we got to get this done. We got to get this done. And you're right. Sometimes our students need a little bit more time than normal to just get it out. So thank you for that takeaway, and just reminding us, that sometimes we need to take a step back away from our own agenda. Right. And this is when we're talking about asking those effective questions and asking, like, okay, get it out. How was your day today? What else would you like to share with me about today? Right. Or just, finding ways to ask some questions that are relevant to the context of the situation, relevant to that child's interest, and just allow them and say, hey, maybe we don't get the tutoring done today. Right. Maybe we don't get the thing that we wanted to get done. Maybe it doesn't get done, and we pivot the day and use the day in, some other way that's a little bit more conducive to the energy of the situation, to how that student is feeling. So thank you so much for that. This is really great conversation, which leads us into the next thing when we talk about active listening, right? So how do we show that we are listening actively? So when you show that you're listening, first of all, always tell people body language is everything. Nonverbals will say way more than your verbal communication will ever say. And I do a whole different training too. We talk about body language and the importance and the impact of body language. So I always like to tell people, make sure, first of all, that you kind of have your body language in check, which means like you're not sitting there with your arms folded, because arms folded can communicate non-verbally to someone that you're not receptive and you're not open. So I always encourage people, like, loosen up, right? We tend to keep our shoulders so tense, right? We carry a lot of stress in our body unconsciously. So I remind people to, like, loosen your shoulders, unclench your jaw, remove your tongue from the roof of your mouth, because that's really just where we hold a lot of the tenseness in our bodies, the stress. And when we are allowing those things to just calm down, it'll really give off the energy that I'm here, I'm open, I'm ready to receive, I'm ready to listen, right? So kind of, like I said, I carry a lot of facial expressions with me. So I always have to remember to check my face. So I might have to put on a slight smile or something, just so I have a tendency, like, I can look mean, but it's like, I'm not mean, but people always say, like, oh, you look so mad. I'm like, oh no, that's not really what I'm intending to do. So I always have to check my face. So just, sometimes check your nonverbals, check your body language, because that can show that you're listening. Another thing I always encourage people to do is get off of your phone, give someone your undivided attention. That will show them that you're listening actively as well. I've been in a lot of classrooms where, students are going up to staff and asking them questions, and staff on their phone or multitasking, doing other things. And, that child doesn't have your undivided attention, and they can tell, right? And then it can shut them down. So just make sure that you give them your attention, your undivided attention. That's also going to help them know that you're ready to listen actively. Another thing you can do is identify with the feelings and empathize, right? Validate how they're feeling. Say, hey, that's absolutely okay for you to feel that way today. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you for letting me know. And it's okay. This is why I always ask people, like, are you a 1, a 3, or a 5? I'm not offended if you say it's a 1. You have every right to feel like you don't want to be here today. That is your right, and that is okay. If that's a feeling that you have today, okay. I know some people like to do, when I was in the classroom with the little ones who may not have the words all the time, we would do smiley faces, right? Like, are you an angry face today? Are you smiling? We would do the emoji faces and just have them point. You come in, tell me, how are you feeling today? Or even asking them questions and holding up visuals that they might be able to identify with, so that you can identify with those feelings as well. And then, as Meg said, hold back and let the youth speak. Silence can be golden sometimes. And I have struggled with that because, like some of you have said, I've wanted to jump in with the solution or jump in with the next thought, or jump in to feel the silence, because silence can feel uncomfortable sometimes, right? When it's too quiet, then you're like, are y'all listening? Like, are you still with me? Sometimes in our own minds, we're questioning, like, is this working? But silence can be necessary. And so one of the tips that I got from a very well-versed facilitator was like, hey, Shavon, count to 10, right? Allow 10 seconds of silence to be there and allow people at least 10 seconds of processing time, and that's really at minimum. If they need a little bit longer processing time, then you allow that as well. And so I started to be like, okay, let me count in my head, like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. And when I counted to 10, I was like, oh, that is actually a long time. So I'm actually going to show you what 10 seconds of silence looks like and feels like, just so that you all can experience it as well. So here we go, 10 seconds of silence. Whew. Now, when you're asking someone a question and giving them time to answer, 10 seconds, man, it can feel like a lifetime. But like Meg stated, sometimes that silence is needed to allow people to process. And I love how you all had said too, allow other youth to be able to maybe chime in and help as well. Another thing for listening actively, remember the context and the details, because you also want to repeat back and really just kind of paraphrase what someone had said to you. That's a really great way to show that you're actively listening, is to repeat back and say, okay, what I hear you say is this, or what I've heard you tell me is this. Now, here's a really important note for when you're repeating back. I have learned the value of paying attention to the verbs the person is using and making sure if they use a verb, I need to use the same verb. Because if you tell me that, today, let me see, what's a good one? Today, I'm mad. And if I repeat back and say, oh, what I hear you saying is that you're angry today. Someone can say, no, I didn't say I was angry. I said I was mad, right? Like those might be completely different meanings to them. So for that person, they're like, you're not listening because I didn't say I was angry. I said I was mad today. And for us, it's like, well, they're the same to me. They're synonyms, but that's not how it is for every word and every verb. So I have learned to really pay attention to the language that the person is using and to use their language when I am repeating back, because I want to make sure that they know I'm listening, I'm here, and I'm hearing exactly what it is that you're saying without putting my own thought and my own perspective and my own opinion on top of it. Because when I repeat back to you, if I use completely different words than you use, it will then have a different meaning. And a person can feel like, well, now you're not listening because I didn't say any of that. So definitely make sure that you are using, the same language, the same verbs that that person is using to communicate to you as well. Okay, so what I want to do now, it's 11:14. I want to get into talking a little bit about some encouragement. So we'll do this as a whole group, right? I have a scenario here. Wow, I won't assign anything. Let's do this. We're a good group of chatting individuals. So let's do this as a whole group. I'm going to go ahead and put out a scenario here for you all. And I'd love for us to just have a discussion about it. And maybe even talk about like what we would do in this situation. So here's the first scenario. You are a young person, right? You are the youth. You've just finished writing a poem. You're not usually very comfortable with your writing, but you are really proud of this piece that you wrote about your family. You're especially excited to show the adult because you managed to include things you learned in the workshop. You show the adult your poem, and they are very dismissive about the poem that you wrote and went on to the next activity, right? So this is you being a youth. You wrote this poem, really excited. You went and showed the adult. They were completely dismissive about what you wrote. Communicate with me, and you can type this in the chat, or you can talk it out loud. How would that make you feel as a youth? If you feel like the grown-up in the situation was very dismissive, how would that make you feel?
I'd feel like they didn't care, like I didn't matter.
Okay, feel like they didn't care, didn't matter. How would that impact your participation for the rest of the class?
I would probably shut down and just say, well, I guess it didn't matter, so I'm not going to say anything else, because you don't want to be embarrassed and put it out there again.
Okay, all right. So the shutdown, you feel like you probably go to the shutdown and be like, I heard you say, I don't want to be embarrassed. And that's a really key thing, right? Because sometimes we forget that kids can feel embarrassed, like little things might make them feel embarrassed, and then they will shut down. Okay, thank you so much for that input. Anyone else want to share with how they would feel?
I think I would feel like very disengaged even from the program, because if it's something that I feel like relates to what we're doing, and if the adult doesn't care, then why am I here? Why am I learning any of this? Why am I engaging if when I try to engage, it doesn't sort of amount to anything?
Oh, thank you for that, Claire. So for you, it's just like, now I don't even care about the program, right? It's not even just about the day. It's not even about the rest of the day. Now it's really a bigger, like, I don't even know, like, why am I even in the program then, if this is the type of interaction or the type of energy that I'm going to get? So now I'm really kind of disengaged. And now the program is saying, I really left a bad taste in my mouth anyways. That is a very good point. Thank you. Thank you so much, Claire. And so this is really interesting, some of the input that you all are giving, right? When we put ourselves, and we really think about putting ourselves in some of these scenarios, we think about the impact that these interactions can have. And for some of you, it's like, yeah, for the day, I shut down. For some of you, it might be like, okay, forget for the day. I don't think I even want to be a part of this program. Now, I don't even like the program anymore. That's a good point. That is a really, really good point. So we have to remember that, our interactions, if they're not positive, if they're not purposeful, if we're not really implementing, asking, listening, and encouraging, it can not only shut our youth down for the day, for the moment, it can shut them down for the rest of the program. Interesting. Thank you so much for that. All right, here's another one. Okay, we are the adult in this scenario. You've been supporting small groups of youth with projects, right? Each group had a leader, and now you are meeting with one of those leaders to talk about the result of the project that they were working on. You need to give feedback about his or her work, but you must only offer general positive judgment, things like good job, nice work, I like it, you are such a great leader, you are fantastic. The goal is to tell the youth what a good job they did, but make sure you don't get into any specifics about the young person's work. All right. So you've been supporting these groups. You're giving feedback. Your feedback is good job, nice work, I like it, great job. And in your mind, you're saying the goal is, I want to really tell them what a good job they did, but I don't really want to get into any specifics about the young person's work. This is you as the adult. Let's talk about it, because I see this scenario happen a lot in programming. Let's talk about this right here when we talk about giving feedback. What are your thoughts on giving feedback? Like, good job, nice work, I like it. Are you also of the mind that I want to give it, but I don't really want to get into too many specifics of that young person's work? Or are you of the mind of saying, I do want to give specifics about that young person's work? What are your thoughts here?
I generally try to personalize, even if it's just one part of what they've done that I can pull out to lift up, to let them know that I am seeing the work they're doing and noticing the effort and the details they put in it.
Okay.
But it can get hard with a full class to find ways so that you don't fall into the great work, great work, great work. You put a lot of effort in this, to find ways to make it feel authentic to the students too.
Okay, and thank you for that. Now let me ask you, Meg, what is the difference between you taking that approach versus just going with the generic good jobs, nice work? What have you seen be the difference in the two?
I think that they really want to know where they can improve, or if you just say good job and you always say good job, what does that mean? It starts to not have meaning to them. So they're like, okay, well, I guess if I put a lot of effort in this and I got a good job, but I woke up and did this morning before school and I got a good job, well, then now I don't need to put all that effort in because it's going to get the same reaction.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I wholeheartedly agree with that input about, especially that example that you gave, right? Hey, if I spend all week working on this project and you were just like, oh, okay, that's cute. Good job. And then it's just like, that's it. Right? Like, well, that's what you told me when I did this 5 minutes before it was due. So I agree with you that it can, discourage students from really wanting to put more effort into it because they're going to feel like you don't care. And I agree with you that students actually want to know specifically what is good about this, right? Or they want to know, how can I improve this? Or, really, what are your thoughts? And it's not even about saying if it was good or bad. It can be just about offering some feedback. So anyone else want to chime in before we
I'd like to add to that.
Go right ahead.
Finding something unique about each student's thing, I think would be a good thing to do, because kids are going to go back and talk to their friends. And if everybody's saying, oh, they said, just good job, I think that in terms of your work, you want some sort of validation, like, oh, hey, I am doing a good job. I am making a successful attempt. But if everybody's being told the same thing, that they're going to start to not feel that way. So I think that finding something unique would be a positive thing.
Yes, absolutely. Right. We forget kids talk. They absolutely talk. And it's going to be like, oh, so she said the same thing about everybody's project. This, then mine really wasn't special. Right. Or then there was no reason for me to really try to, put this unique spin on it if you were going to say the same thing about everything that we do. Thank you so much for that feedback page. So let's talk a little bit about encouragement. Talking about encouraging success. So why do we want to encourage success, right? What does that look like? When we encourage success, first of all, you want to participate alongside the youth. As someone who has seen a lot of different programs from so many different perspectives, I will be honest with you all and say I just really get a little peeved when I go into an after-school program and I see all of this great work happening amongst the students, and the staff is somewhere sitting in the back in the corner. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, why? They're doing something else. No, you should be in it, participating right alongside your youth. You should be, walking around, getting down to their level with them to let them know, hey, I am right here with you. If they are sitting at the table, when you get to that table, crouch down to that table so that you can be at their level and really kind of see what's going on. If they are standing up, then you stand up, right? They're sitting down on the ground. I will get on the ground with them as long as my body allows me to. And just let them know I see it. I'm gonna, I want to participate along with you. So because that's one way we can encourage success, is just by participating alongside with them to let them know we're interested. We're in it. I'm in this right along with you. Another way we want to encourage success, encourage them to describe their plans, their feelings, and their goals. So when we talk about planning, right, having them do a plan, that gets them excited. Also, it allows them to just start speaking some things through. So this goes back to asking those relevant questions. You can start to ask them about the activity they're about to do. Okay, hey, before we get started, go ahead and walk me through what's your plan, for this activity. Oh, we're going to build a tower out of, scraps here. Okay, great. Wonderful. That sounds amazing. Tell me, what's your plan for that? What do you want that to look like? What's your vision for it? What's the goal, right? You can ask, how do you feel about this project? Really allow them to think through some things, because this is that critical thinking process as well. And then also, here we go with the make specific comments. We don't want the generic, good job, that's cute. Ooh. No, we really want you to make very specific comments about what's going on, because as you all stated, we want to customize this. We want this to be authentic. We really want to point out the unique things about what's going on with our students, but you really want to avoid judgment. And this is why I said this isn't about saying if, something is good or bad, if it's right or wrong. It's really just about giving your thoughts on what their process looks like, giving your thoughts on, well, this is what I'm seeing, right? So it doesn't have to say, oh, I don't think you all are doing a good job. You can just say, well, what I'm seeing is, if your goal is to build a really big tower, right now, what I'm seeing is that your tower is still pretty small. So let's think about how can we make it bigger if that's what you're going for. So that avoid that judgment, but you also want to be honest with them. Guess what? If someone is not on the right track with what they, what their goal was for the project, don't tell them that they are. If what they're doing is not following the instructions, don't make it seem like, oh, that's exactly what I asked you to do. No, be honest with them and help get them back on track. So we're going to look at the definitions between praise and encouragement. So to praise, that's an expression of approval, right? An expression of approval, to express favorable judgment, right? It's value driven, glorifying, right? And then we're attributing perfection. So praising someone, oh, great job, good job. That's what that's awesome. Those are examples of praise. Now, encouragement is to inspire with courage, to spur on and to stimulate, to point out the positive aspects of behavior, to show appreciation for a contribution, right? So you can show appreciation. And that's one thing I will say, I find myself doing a little bit more of showing appreciation for contribution. As you can even see here, I'll say, oh, thank you so much for sharing that with me, right? So just even to show an appreciation of the effort that people put in, to, point out something specific about what it is that they're doing, or an aspect of the behavior, right? So here, when we're looking at praise, I love to remind people, you can think of it as praise is me telling you about you. That's me validating, right? Value driven. So that's me telling you about yourself. Encouragement is you telling me about you, right? So if I encourage you, if I spur on, if I'm asking those relevant questions and I'm really listening to the information that you're giving me and I'm encouraging you there, then that is you telling me about you. Because I'm going to be asking you, well, you tell me, what do you think? How do you feel about what you've created here? You tell me about, do you feel like you're on track to meet your goal? Asking those divergent questions, right? Asking those questions that allow them to maybe think about it a little bit deeper, or checking in with them and making sure that we're getting them to think about, well, you tell me, how you feel about whatever it is that you've created, or do you feel like what you've given today was your best, or do you feel like you have a little bit more to give? However you want to phrase those questions, think about it as encouragement. You really want the student to tell you about them. So on the PQA, we know praise gets a score of a 3. But when your assessor can come in and really see you encouraging, that is what's going to be the score of a 5. When they see you asking those questions, those relevant questions, when they see you really engaging with the youth in that way. So I want to take a minute and just kind of stop just right here and have some informal conversation. So tell me all, I would love for you all to share with me some examples of how you encourage youth in your program.
And at our center, we do a lot of art therapy and things like that. So it's a lot of different interactive things. And what I do is I hold up what they're doing and say, look at what, Desiree did. This is amazing. And then we all cheer that person on. But I also make a point of going around and doing the same thing as they're finishing. So it encourages them to finish because they want to be spotlighted too. They want Miss Tish to be like, hey, she did a great job. So that's how I praise them and try to keep them all engaged and make sure we don't leave anybody out also.
Okay, and thank you for sharing that with us. So I would like to ask you, when you're doing that, because I've seen some people do that as well, and I think that really gets students excited because people want to showcase their work, right? That means I'm sure they're looking forward to Miss Tish coming around, like, okay, I'm next. I'm, my stuff up next, right? So do you also maybe ask students to share, like, tell me one thing you notice about this person's work?
Yes, absolutely. So we encourage them to encourage each other also. So we have, so if I try not to pressure the kids, so if they don't want to talk about their piece, it's fine. But I want other people to pour into them. What are you getting out of what they did? And it becomes like a dialogue, and they really enjoy that. It's nice, especially for our shy kids, to hear from other people how they feel about their work.
Thank you. And let me ask you too, what impact do you think that has had on your students, you taking that approach?
I think it's had a huge impact. One is building relationships. So these kids come to us, they don't know each other, but because we dialogue and we talk and we encourage, it becomes part of our culture and what we do. So it's a sisterhood where you get used to, it's okay to encourage each other. If she did a better job on the project, it's okay. Let's encourage that person. So it's become a part of the culture.
Awesome. I love that. So community building,
yes.
Right? I hear you say, like, really making that a part of your culture, making that a part of the expectation.
Yes.
Because when we embed that into, like, this is just what we do, it seems like you're really taking the competitive edge out. Like, this doesn't have to be a competition all the time, but instead, let's really support one another for what everyone did. And let's point out the things that, we thought were really great.
Yes.
About, because guess what, it's also a learning experience. I don't know about y'all, but I'd be like, oh man, let me try that next time.
And they do that. That's what they do.
Yeah, like, okay, that's a good point. Like, let me try that, right? And so I tell you, it seems like it can be kind of a resource sharing, in in a sense, because it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that technique, right? Oh, I didn't think about maybe trying it that way or using that medium, because I heard you say that you all do art therapy.
Yes.
So that's a really great way to encourage people to try new things, right? We're talking about scaffolding activities. That seems like a great way to just even get them into the mindset of scaffolding, because then it's like, okay, well, next time, since you liked kind of what that person did, well, next time maybe you can try that technique or try that aspect of it as well and see what you come up with. So I like that, because I feel like there are a lot of opportunities to ask those relevant questions, to maybe, make sure that we're really asking questions that will help challenge them, help maybe take their skill set to another level, or even take their thought process to another level, and really think outside the box. So, and Meg says, pour into them. She says she loved that you said that, right? Pouring into them. Thank you so much, Tish, for sharing that. Anyone else want to share with us maybe how you encourage some of the youth in your program? And like I said, we can definitely think of this kind of like as a resource sharing time, right? I'd love to hear what works for you in your program, or even if you're like, hey, Shavon, maybe I'm struggling and I need some feedback or some help, feel free to chime in and share that as well, because we are a community here, right? We really want to support one another. So anyone else want to share what encouragement looks like in your program?
I work with go ahead. I work with a theater conservatory, so our students know that part of what they have to do is perform in front of their peers. So what I've done with my class is when they do get up and they share, I give them 3 guides of thoughts, reflections, discoveries, and it can be the students that were watching them, their thoughts on what they noticed or what they liked, reflections on what they prepped for in the scene, and discoveries of, you know, when you did that in front of your classmates, did you find something new? Did you discover something new? And it really helps them, because they all know that they're going to be performing too. It helps them lift each other up and point out the strengths that they have. And if they can see that somebody's nervous, they give them encouragement to say, you know, like, I know you seemed nervous, but you still got through that entire monologue, and it didn't, by the end, it seemed like you were totally in the character, and that was amazing.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Meg. And I just typed in the chat, just what you said, thoughts, reflections, and discoveries, right? Giving them that guide. I like how you provide them with a guide, because sometimes people may not know how to give feedback, or maybe not how to give, you know, encouragement in that way. So I'm glad that you said, hey, I'm going to provide them with a guide and say, give me a thought, give me a reflection, and give me a discovery. I really like that. I'm going to borrow that. As well, because I like, you know, being able to think about it like that. And it seems like you all also have some community building going on with them, giving that feedback. And you know, I love theater. I used to do theater back in the day. And so as a performer, right, being able to hear what it is and maybe how you have achieved that point, or maybe what you can do differently, is very conducive in helping you reach your goal. So encouragement, right? Because we're talking about encouraging success. We want our youth to be successful in whatever it is that they're doing. And we can see that this encouragement is really helping them be able to get to that goal by saying, hey, I saw what you did there. I saw that you got maybe caught up and struggled. However, I also saw that you reached your goal in the end. Or I saw that you realized you didn't reach your goal and you started to pivot, right? Whatever that might look like. That feedback is really helping the youth make sure that they can be successful. So thank you very much for that, Meg. And Antonio, did you want to share?
Yeah, I'll share real quick. So when I was at the Boys and Girls Club, one thing that I like to do is to emphasize their progress, and also to quote them. So whenever they would do something and at first they were struggling with it, or had some challenges, or felt like they couldn't do it themselves, and once they actually accomplished that, I would remind them, like, hey, remember when you felt this way, or remember when you said that you couldn't do it, and now look at you now, like you did this, and now you've accomplished what you thought you couldn't. And so remember this, you know, for the future, that you may start one way, and then at the end you'll be able to accomplish what you've done. So just emphasizing the progress and letting them know that, you know, that you're not the same as you were at first, and you've actually, you know, progressed and you've moved along.
Antonio, I need that reminder myself. So thank you. Thank you so much. I like that approach. And like I said, me personally, I am a person who needs that reminder, because sometimes when you're in it, you don't feel like you've made too much progress. So I like how you said, for us with encouragement, we would remind them of, remember where you started. Now look at where you're at now, right? So that they can kind of see the bigger picture. Because when you're in it, you can get stuck and be like, oh, it's not working out how I thought it was going to work out. But this also is really great, because even when we talk about, right, allowing students to planning, right, planning something out, then you can remind them, okay, well, remember when you created your plan, look how you stuck to your plan. Here's the thing, even if you didn't meet your goal, because sometimes I tell people it's not even about the outcome. It's really about the process. It's about the journey. And so maybe you didn't meet your goal. It's okay. But when we've encouraged them to share the plan, first of all, to make a plan, to share the plan, to connect their feelings to the plan as well. I like how you say, like, let me go remind them. Let's think about the plan that you made. Let's look at all the things that you did, so that is them telling you about them, right? You're just reminding them. You told me you were going to do it. Here are all the things that you did. Now you tell me, did you do exactly what you said you were going to do? Regardless, maybe if you met the goal or not. And I'm sure for them, that's an aha moment. That's like, oh, right? Like, I guess you're right. I did do the things that I said I was going to do. Like I said, as a grown adult, I need that reminder myself sometimes when I'm like, but I didn't hit my goal. I love to have people in my corner to support me and come back and say, okay, Shavon, but remember when you said you wanted to do this, right? And then you followed all of the steps. May not have worked out how you wanted, but you actually did exactly what you said, you were going to do. And then, Antonio, sounds like that's a great opportunity as well to even do further planning, right? Maybe if someone didn't reach the goal, okay, well, here are all the things we did. Hey, you tell me, what would you do different? What do you want to try to do, differently next time? Or how would you want to adjust your plan? So this is really great to scaffold an activity. You're asking those questions, continuing to encourage success, and really move the project or the conversation forward as well. Thank you for sharing that as well. I needed that reminder today. Okay, anyone else want to share? I want to make sure I give space for anyone else to share as well. All right. Okay, so here are some quotes right here. Some believe that young people need praise, but all kids need food too. But it's the kind of food that we give that's important to think about. That is a quote by Jan Gravely, right? By saying, we know everybody needs to eat, but we also have to be mindful of what we're eating. So this other quote says, think of praise like a big, thick piece of chocolate. Tastes great. It's good every once in a while, but we couldn't survive on cake alone. Encouragement is the nourishment our emotional body needs. That is from the North American Montessori Center, from their blog from March 11th, 2008. And I do like me a slice of chocolate cake every now and then, but this quote is right. I cannot survive on cake alone, although sometimes I wish I could. So here we are looking for some criteria for determining if you have effective encouragement. All right, so it's effective if you're really evaluating and you ask, are we helping our youth evaluate themselves? It's ineffective if you ask, or are we evaluating our youth, right? Effective, we're helping them evaluate themselves, right? It's, hey, you tell me about you. It's ineffective if it's me telling you about you, if it's me evaluating the youth, right? When we look at self-determination, it's effective if we're helping the youth feel like they have a sense of control, right? Hey, like, you tell me, what do you want to do? How do you want to change it? What are your plans? Giving them that control of, you really control the situation. It is ineffective if we are manipulating their behavior, right? If we go in with our own agenda and say, that's not how I wanted you to do it. Nope. I mean, that's cute, but right. Or if we're coming in with some judgment, if we're only going in with what we want and we're missing out on opportunities to really listen in for what the youth are trying to communicate to us. If we're being a Miss Johnson, right? Then that's manipulating behavior, because Miss Johnson absolutely was manipulating Michael's behavior in that scenario. So when we think about the intrinsic motivation, the internal motivation, it's effective if we're creating conditions for our youth to become deeply involved in what they're doing. It's ineffective if we're creating conditions for them to win our approval, right? So we don't want them to do something just so they can be like, look at me. I'm waiting for, Miss Johnson to tell me I did it right. We want to create conditions for them to really get involved and think about what they're doing. We want to ask them questions about the projects that they're working on, the activities that they're working on, the goals that they have, the plans that they want to put in place, right? I have definitely seen it in classrooms where, and I've had to have this conversation with my daughter a gajillion times, because she always wants to finish first, right? And she has this, like, she wants to win approval. So she would always be like, I'm done. And I used to watch her in her classroom sometimes when I would go and observe, and she would always be, I'm done. And I'm like, sweetie, you don't have to be first, but it's because she wanted to, like, someone to be like, oh, great job, right? Great job. You did. No. I told like, don't be first to finish. It's okay. I want you to make sure that you've done it the correct way. So take your time, reflect, review. Did you do it right? Did you answer all the questions? So I have had to go in and help her start to think about those questions herself, because I'm like, I don't want you to go about things just trying to win the approval. Right. So these are just a few criteria for determining if your encouragement is effective versus if it's being ineffective. Definitely ask yourself these questions. And you all will get a copy of this presentation, just FYI. So distinguishing praise from encouragement, right? Determine if each statement, is it a praise statement or is it an encouragement statement? For praise, if you find yourself praising, right? Because I've done it. And for me, I have found that it is definitely a habit that I have to break, because I notice praise just kind of flows off the tongue, kind of the easy thing for me to go to. So I do challenge myself to reword them into statements that can be more encouraging. So that's, if you're like me, then you're just like, that was praise. Try to then reword it so that it can become a statement of encouragement. And then here are some alternatives to praise. Select one instance that you can provide feedback on, right? That you can do, you can analyze and give some thoughts about. Just, pick maybe one aspect of it. And then also what you can do is, if someone is always praising, you can explain, even to your youth, like why praise is, it can be problematic. And then if you're doing it with your staff, you can explain to your staff, like, here's the impact of when we're just praising, and you can just try to suggest an alternative response for them. So when we talk about applying, asking, listening, and encouraging, just a recap of what we talked about, right? We want you to ask lots of great questions. We want them to be divergent. We want them to be relevant. Also, we want them to be challenging in the right way. We want to balance our questions with some comments and some dialogue. We don't want to interrogate. We want to be able to provide every youth with an opportunity to give input. We want to listen actively. We want to use our body language to show that we are listening, we're open, we're ready to receive exactly what it is you're going to give me. We want to identify the feelings with the youth and empathize, let them know, hey, it's absolutely okay to be feeling however it is that you feel. We want to allow the silence to sit, right? So hold back, allow our youth to speak, allow the silence to sit, allow them to process, right? Even if they're not speaking, sometimes we need the silence to be able to process exactly what is going on. And then really remember the context and the details of the conversation and repeat back. Repeat back the details that they gave you, repeat back the context that they gave you, and just remember to use their language, to speak their language, so that it really shows them that you are listening. And when we think about encouraging, participate alongside the youth, get in it with them, or get down to their level. Encourage them to describe their plans. Encourage them to connect feelings to those plans as well. Encourage them to share their goals, to even have a goal, to make a goal, to have a plan. Because as Antonio just reminded us, that's something that we can use to kind of go back and show them the progress that they've made as well. Make specific comments. I know a lot of you have said that as well. Amazing. Make specific comments, customize it. Point out something unique. And you all were right. It definitely takes effort and time when you're working with a large group of students to be able to do that. So I always tell people, just kind of prepare yourself, have the patience and really challenge yourself to make sure that you're pointing out something that unique and special for all of your students. Because if they took the time to do it, we talked about that today. If they took the time to do it, we want to really take the time to give them some encouragement on it as well. And lastly, we want to avoid the judgment. We want to be honest, but we want to make sure that we're taking the judgment out. We don't want them to, we don't want to give a, you did it right or you did it wrong type of thing. We just want to give feedback, make those very specific comments about what it is that we see as well. Okay. So we are nearing the end. It is 11:49. So I would love to do a quick reflection. I'm going to ask you to do, we have a stoplight here. I would love to ask you to do a red light, yellow light, green light reflection. So we're going to start with a green light. So a green light reflection is Tell me one thing you learned today. What's one good thing you learned today that you say, hey, I'm going to start doing that? Go ahead, feel free to type that into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and you can share it verbally. What's one thing you learned today, or, you know, that was an aha moment that you said, hey, I'm going to start doing this? All right, I see some answers coming in. Paige says, I'm going to allow some silence when asking questions. Awesome. Meg says, I've learned how to make distinctions between praise and encouragement. Awesome. Tish says, I will start using the 10-second rule immediately. She says, also active listening and not giving my opinion, but listening to what they are saying. And Felicia says, silence is great. Awesome. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, thank you all for that. Now we're going to move on to, Antonio wrote, praise equals me telling you about you, and encouragement is you telling me about you. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And Claire says, giving students space to encourage, each other. I loved that as well. That was a huge takeaway, a reminder for me that we need to give them space to encourage one another. So thank you all for that. So now we're going to move on to a yellow light reflection. Yellow light reflection, you're going to share with me one thing that you found out, hey, I was actually doing this right, so I'm going to keep doing it. So what's a yellow reflection? One thing that you knew, hey, this is the right thing to do. I'm on the right path. So I am going to continue to do this. So go ahead and share with me one thing that you know you've been doing right when we talk about asking, listening, and encouraging. So you're just going to keep on doing that great thing. Feel free to type that into the chat as well. So what will you continue to do? All right, I see some answers coming in here. Tish says she will continue having her girls encourage and listen to each other. Awesome. Paige says, I will continue allowing you to answer in ways that work for them, the verbal or the nonverbal. Felicia says, I'm going to continue being specific when telling a student why I felt something was nice. Antonio says, I'm going to continue to show that I care through active listening. Meg says, I'm going to continue listening to students and adjusting my questions. I like that, adjusting the questions, absolutely. Okay, now we have come up on our red light reflection. So the red light reflection, I want you to tell me, after our training today, you've been like, okay, Shavon, I found out I was maybe guilty of some things. What's one thing you're going to stop doing that you have learned, hey, maybe that isn't the best way to go about it. So go ahead and share with me one thing that you've learned today that you are going to stop doing because maybe it is not conducive to programming. So feel free to share. What will you stop doing? All right, so I see some answers coming in. Paige says, I'm going to stop the roadblocks to communication, right? I'm going to stop shutting down. I'm going to stop lecturing, etc. She says, or will at least make an effort to work on these. I like that. Antonio says, I'm going to stop offering solutions and praising and stop giving positive evaluations. I like that. Tish says, she says, you got me in the beginning. I do a lot of behaviors on your list. So she said to choose one, I will stop lecturing and talking at my girls. Tish, I am very also guilty of a lot of those roadblocks to communication myself. So I often have to check myself as well. Claire says, I'm going to stop filling the silence with more questions or offering solutions. Meg says, I'm going to stop lecturing. Claire, I still struggle with that as well. So I'm right there with you. I often try to fill the silence with more questions. So I too have to continue to stop doing that. Thank you all so much for sharing these reflections with me and for giving me your time and your attention, and just even sharing some of the feedback of the things that are working beautifully in your programs, some takeaways that you all have had. If you do have a guidebook, here are some more information in the guidebook on different resources that you can tap into. Listening with Empathy, talk about Bloom's taxonomy, sharing it with others, also talking about the is phrase helpful or harmful, that's also in there, just in case you do have a guidebook. As always, if you have any other questions, please feel free to share them right now. If you had this lingering thought that you wanted to share, please feel free to go ahead and tap that in. If not, we are at the end. I am done. I really hope you all enjoyed this information I shared with you today. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your energy. I really, really enjoyed the conversation that we were having today. And I'm so happy I got an opportunity to sit and chat with you all on asking, listening, and encouraging. That is it for me. Thank you all. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.